Hi everyone, it's Hayes, and in today's video we're going to do the commentary / analysis for episode 15 of Miraculous Ladybug season 6, The Ruler. Sorry I didn't do this yesterday. Basically, I don't have any professional lighting to do YouTube videos with. I just use the daylight, and when the episode eventually was released at 3-4 p.m, all the daylight had basically gone, so I couldn't film. So I've literally had my phone on Do Not Disturb since 3:30 p.m. yesterday, so I wouldn't get any notifications from Twitter. I didn't go on my Discord server last night because I'd already seen it, so I haven't really been talking to anyone for the past 12 hours or so. But anyway, I've seen it now, and speaking of which, I'm about to spoil the entire episode for you. So if you haven't already seen it, please go and do so before you watch the rest of this video. And oh my god, I loved it. It's a solid 9 out of 10. I think it was absolutely fabulous. I do think in general, first of all, I felt like the season was off to a shaky start with Illustrator and Sublimation. I still don't think they're great episodes, but the rest of it so far has been pretty good, though it's been great. So I'm not really sure what happened with those two episodes. But this episode was absolutely fabulous. I love the message. I thought it was pretty obvious that it was the comic books and the way Nathaniel's mum felt about him pursuing comic books rather than a more serious form of art. Was her exhibiting homophobia, and then Nathaniel was kind of I don't know if we should be doing this comic because he was being influenced by his mum and stuff. I thought it was all great, and just I just thought it was a great way to do it. When the show does showing over telling, they do a great job, but most of the time they choose not to do it, and I'm like, why? It literally makes it better. Why? When you do it, you do a great job. Plus as well, for example, the episode Cheelin, the terrible animation of that episode aside, that also discussed a really important issue around racism, and it also had some ableism in there, not as much as the racism stuff, but that did have some ableism. So two extremely important issues, but it was executed really poorly. To me, I've always been if you're gonna talk about these important issues, then let's do it, let's go for it. They're extremely important, especially to children to learn about. But if we're gonna do it, then let's do it properly. The way it was done in Cheelin was a bit meh, and I've never actually seen anyone be yeah, this was a really good. I've never seen anyone really like that episode, whether just as an episode in general or for the message it sent. But I thought this one was absolutely wonderful. It was great, and I loved all the very specific language they used. So stuff mainly during the Akuma bit, his mum right before Akumatized, she was you're going to go straight, and then Lila was just set things straight, we're going to convert him, stop him from going in the wrong direction, stuff like that. It was very specific language. I feel, in my opinion, I guess it depends how they translate it, but to me I felt, at least in the French dub, the language was subtle enough that it would hopefully get past any censorship things certain TV networks have in other countries, but I don't know if it will. But anyway, I just thought everything around the homophobia and Nathaniel's mum and how she felt and how she was influencing Nathaniel, and then that having an impact on his relationship with Mark, was just executed beautifully. The only reason it's basically not a 10 out of 10 is, first of all, I felt Nathaniel's mum, whilst I think she served her purpose for the episode, I'm about to say she's a great character, obviously she was a terrible person, but for the purpose of the episode she was a great character. I felt she could have been it a bit more. Maybe I was just being stupid because she literally had a ruler in her hair. I didn't think they were gonna go so literal. The whole time when I was going into the episode, in my head I was someone controlling, not a literal ruler, but they went for both, which is great. So maybe it should have been obvious, but I really felt I wasn't sure for quite a bit of the episode. In my reaction, I was is Nathaniel gonna get akumatized? Is Mark gonna get akumatized? I really wasn't sure. Maybe I was just being stupid, but I think she could have actually done with being in the episode a little bit more prior to the akumatization, which I think would have really helped with the pace of this episode, because the pace was so incredibly slow. And whilst I can understand from one perspective the pace being a little bit slower because of the message was so important, I get it from that perspective, it shouldn't feel it drags. I've watched slow TV shows before, read slow books, and the pace usually doesn't drag when it's slow, when it's done for a reason. So whilst I get what the reason might have been, I don't think it suited the episode, and obviously it was only 20 whatever minutes long. I felt I was watching it for about 40 minutes, both when I reacted to it and then when I rewatched it to make my notes. So I definitely think they could have adjusted the pace to quicken things up a bit by making some of the scenes not quite as long, which would have given room for Nathaniel's mum. And with how hostile she was, I found the scenes with her in the fastest to me. So yeah, that was basically the issues. Nathaniel's mum and the pace dragging, but otherwise I thought it was great. The message of the homophobia was wonderful. Loved the characters. The relationship development between Mark and Nathaniel was great. And the ending, of course, the ending. Although we'll get to the ending when we get to the end of the video. So let's start, and already I've got written my notes. Love the metaphor around homophobia, the way it was delivered without being too obvious, like I'd already said. I hope it's gonna get around the censorship, but I have no real idea. I don't want to bang on too much about it because like it's just great all the way through. All the language is so specific. I'm excited to hear it in English to see what they say then. So I love the contrast as well with Nathaniel's parents, who are just a bit like, his dad's a bit like, I'm not so sure about this, and his mum's like straight up, no. And then you get Mark's parents who are like, excellent, we loved it, made us cry. Although it did make me nervous to see them all sat on the settee wearing shoes. Wasn't a fan of that. So then we get to Marinette, and first of all, just as a general note in this episode, I loved that Marinette and also Adrian did take a backseat. I know Adrian usually takes a backseat, but he was like entwined with Marinette in this episode. But usually, even when it is like a more of a side characters episode, Marinette does still play a pivotal role. And don't get me wrong, she was still important, she was still necessary for this episode, but I felt like Nathaniel's not a main character for sure, but for this episode he was the main character, which I really liked. And also that Marinette didn't make things about herself. I feel the writers have a tendency to, when it's like an episode about someone else, they have a tendency to write Marinette as coming across as really self-centered and making the issue about herself, whereas in this one she came across as helpful but without doing that. So I really liked it, and that she and Adrian were basically the comic relief in this episode, which was great, because Marinette is usually comic relief but we're meant to take it seriously, and I can't always take it seriously, although the snot was absolutely disgusting. Ugh. Like, I understand she had to be at school for the plot, but like, why don't you just have a day off? So then we have like the first proper scene between Nathaniel and Mark, and Nathaniel obviously being slowly influenced by his parents. I like that it's kind of a slow progression over it, where it starts like this, when he's like, is this really what people want to see? As in talking about two gay characters. And obviously his parents slowly having an influence over them, and that obviously accumulates in him shredding all of the comics later on in the episode. Although I must say, and I don't want this to come across as a criticism because I really didn't like Nathaniel prior to this season, he's a lot less whiny. Honestly, he feels like he's had a major character overhaul, like in the summer holidays between Recreation and whatever the chronological first episode of season 6 is. I don't know, I don't think we've seen it yet. I don't believe Thematic Queen is the first one. But he seems to have had a major personality overhaul. In Penalty and other episodes, he is so whiny and annoying. I'm just like, Nathaniel, shut up. But I really loved him in this episode. He really didn't do any of that. He had some real struggles that he was really contemplating about. He had a lot of emotions going on in the episode. He was great in this episode. So I really feel they've completely changed him. And I really liked it because honestly, prior to this episode, I really didn't like Nathaniel all that much. I like him a lot more now. So whilst it is really weird from a writer's standpoint that they've changed him so much, I also don't care because I hated him before. However, I definitely feel Nathaniel's slightly different character, where he's a lot more, I definitely think much more empathetic and more aware of what other people are thinking and feeling. I loved his relationship with Mark. They went together so well. Like, in other seasons I've just been like, Mark is my son, I love him very much, but Nathaniel, please stay away from him. Love them together in this episode. They were great. I think it's largely due to how different Nathaniel's character is coming across. And then also, oh my god, so Nathaniel goes home to draw Ziggy. Love it. One thing I loved about season 4 so much was all the Kwami interaction. I know it's not exactly the same because all the Kwamis aren't in Marinette's room anymore, but I just love seeing Kwami interaction. I'm still hoping we get to see more from other characters, like we've had some of Alia and Trix. I think that's it. Like, Ivan didn't talk to Stomp in El Toro de Piedra. We had a bit of Sabrina and Bark in Daddy Cop, I'm pretty sure. But like, for example, I would love to see, first of all, my favourite Kwami is Kalki, so I'd love to see some interaction between Max and Kalki. And also, I think my next favourite Kwami is actually Dusu. And even though I don't particularly like Felix very much, I would love, love, love to see some interaction between Felix and Dusu. Whenever it is Felix decides he's going to show up. I don't know. But anyway, Ziggy was great. And then, so Nathaniel changes the end of the comic. And personally, as a writer, I would be so annoyed if someone changed it without asking. If, for example, so I actually am working on this Miraculous project at the minute, and I am writing stuff and people are drawing, and it's great. However, if one of the artists came to me and was like, hey, I'm not sure this scene or whatever is working, I'd rather they come and do that and we can discuss it about how to change it or how to rework it, whatever, than they just change it without me asking. So I fully expected, as a fellow writer, Mark would come in the room and start slapping Nathaniel for doing it. Or at least get annoyed with him. But he didn't, so I was just like, okay, obviously Mark is a lot more chill than I am, because I just thought, I'm sorry, you changed it without asking me? No! And then obviously the mum comes in, again the language very specific, saying like Mark is a distraction to him, as in like he's his boyfriend or whatever. And I wasn't actually sure. I have assumed this whole time Nathaniel and Mark have been dating. For example, in Representation last season, Marinette's running around the Eiffel Tower, it looked they were about to kiss in that little bit, like they're holding hands. I just assumed they were together, and I don't know if it was just skirting around that with the kind of language where it didn't confirm. Like, it hasn't, for example, confirmed that Julika and Rose are dating in verbally, you know, in words. But it has, for example, for Milan and Ivan, because they're a straight couple. It has for Kim and Ondine, because they're a straight couple, but not for Julika and Rose. They kiss and they are around each other, but no one's actually said, oh yeah, they're dating. Oh yeah, they're girlfriends. You know what I mean? So I have just assumed all this time that Mark and Nathaniel were together, but I also, I guess in some vein, if Nathaniel is aware that his parents are really homophobic, that he wouldn't tell him, and they would just be like, yeah, Mark is my best friend. And that's it, there's nothing more going on, he's just my best friend. So I get it for that, so I understand that she was kind of like, he's a distraction. So I think maybe she knows there's something going on as well. So then we get to the camembert scene and Adrian's like, I smell like cheese. I'm not gonna lie to you, Adrian, I was under the impression this whole time from seasons 1 to 5 and the episodes we've seen so far that you carried camembert on you, because I'm pretty sure you take it out your shirt all the time in like seasons 1 to 5. So I was under the impression you did have camembert on your person 24/7. Like, I understand it's not so much of a pressing issue now after Revolution, because you can use Cataclysm like infinitely or whatever, but like seasons 1 to 5 prior to Revolution, I did assume you had camembert on you all the time, because I had been like before, like, I like camembert, it tastes nice, I like the taste of camembert. However, I will acknowledge it stinks. It has a very strong smell. If you've never smelled camembert before, it has a very, very strong smell. So I did just assume he smelled like camembert, to be honest. Like, you telling me, like, did he have like a mini fridge in his pocket from seasons 1 to 5 where he kept the camembert so it didn't smell? I did assume this whole time he kept it in a shirt, and he did indeed smell like camembert. Oh no. It was the comic relief, I'm trying not to take it too seriously. Then we get back to the mum being super controlling, but I definitely feel like we should have had more of that, influencing Nathaniel more. I think that would have really helped overall with the episode. But that, again, like with the specific language, she's saying like, oh, it was, it's just like, this is a phase, as in drawing comic books, obviously with the metaphor for being gay and stuff, and that she wants to forbid Nathaniel from his thing. Mark, again, how dare you, just, he's wonderful. And then, so Nathaniel goes and destroys comic books, totally get it. And then he goes to Marinette's. And she's like, don't tell Adrian I have a cold. It's just the cold. Like, they're not nice, they're not pleasant, I hate getting them too, but like, come on. It's just a cold, Marinette. Anyway, I really liked in this scene that she was talking about like, oh, you might regret this, as in like, okay, you're gonna regret getting rid of the comic, but also you might regret jeopardizing your relationship with Mark, not being true to yourself, by not coming out or whatever. And again, I really liked it that they did it without making it about her. I feel like Marinette has a tendency in the episodes that aren't directly about her to make it all about her, so really loved that. But then Nathaniel rejecting when he finds out all the comics have been shredded and stuff, and crying in the greenhouse. My boy. But also, interesting point, why weren't Nathaniel or Mark at any point in this episode akumatized? Like, they both get pretty upset, like for example in that scene, I'm pretty sure, where Nathaniel's mum is like, I'm gonna forbid you from seeing Mark if this carries on. Nathaniel is pretty traumatized, I think he is about to start crying, then Mark is bawling his eyes out in the greenhouse at school. Lila? Hello? They were both pretty upset. I would say probably more upset than Nathaniel's mum was when she got akumatized. Like, okay. Anyway, then I love the Marinette scene. Again, I didn't feel like they were making the episode at all about her. She was just genuinely trying to help, which I absolutely loved. And then when Nathaniel, like, to me it was like a confrontation of his mum with just the look he gave it. It was amazing. Like, if looks could kill, she would be dead. Amazing. Love the language again about going straight, and the Akuma's just like, we're gonna set things straight, you're gonna convert your son, stop him from going in the wrong direction. And then we move on to the Akuma fight, and Nathaniel quite aptly transformed in a closet and he was like, I'm done hiding, and I was like, excellent. He also had a much better outfit for the goat Miraculous. Of course, Cat Noir he joined the Akuma fight and then he immediately was taken out basically. I'm just kind of used to it happening at this point. He didn't do much in Altura Piedra, you know what I mean? It's just one of them things. I'm just used to it, although on one hand, whilst I'm used to it, on the other hand I'm also like, the fight was about Nathaniel and his mum, so it gets them out of the picture, Ladybug and Cat Noir, when she also gets hit, so Nathaniel can properly confront her, which I thought was excellent. So for example, in Representation, you all know my least favourite episode of the show, one of the things I did like about Representation is the confrontation Cat Noir has with Nightmare Mental as they're fighting. Obviously he can't be straight out and be like, yeah, I'm Adrian, but he's talking about the treatment of his son because obviously he understands since he is his son. So I always enjoyed that part, but I really felt it really lacked any kind of impact because there was no confrontation from Adrian before it or after it, whereas with Nathaniel there is some discussion before, during and after all of it, so it had a really nice follow through with it all and actually, you know, had an effect. So really enjoyed that, although it definitely was freaky to see Ladybug and Cat Noir's eyeballs, they're like the size of pinpricks. Not good, although I do kind of wish that Ladybug had sneezed while she was transformed, then Max could have been like, another jet plane? What is going on? Ladybug's here? Where's my minute? That would have been great. And then I really liked that the Akuma fight ended with Nathaniel controlling his mum instead, because like they have the whole conversations like, he's your son, he's not yours to control, you're making him unhappy and stuff, but then he ends up controlling her to de-akumatize her. It was great. I do feel like as well they should have had more of Mark in the Akuma fight. He just walks off. I'm like, okay, bye. If maybe Mark had been threatened in some way, that would have motivated Nathaniel even more, but you don't even see Mark. I was like, oh, okay, like he gets hit and then he walks off. I don't think you see him again until the end when the Miraculous Ladybug happens. He's like, oh, maybe I should go back. So then we have the final scene with Adrian and Marinette, and his hair, legendary, when she sneezes and he gets blown backwards. Honestly, I think he looked better like that than he does with his fringe down. He looked great. Although I just, the perfume, was it the Adrian fragrance? Or have they discontinued that after Gabriel died? Like, what's happened with it? I need updates. What's the corporate world of the Aggress look like? Does the perfume still exist? Does the fashion line still exist? What's going on, Adrian? So then we have the two, well, the normal ending and then the ending, which are always my favourite scenes. Pretty much the best scenes in the entire show at the minute are the final scenes. But the ending with Nathaniel's parents, really enjoyed it. Thought it was super nice, but also at the same time I feel like Nathaniel's mum, whilst she's getting there and whilst she kind of understands Nathaniel a bit more, she's not totally there, which I felt was symbolised by how the fact that Nathaniel's dad, not his mum, his dad invites Mark over and Mark sits on his dad's side. So I feel like it's completely normal, not that homophobia is okay in any way, shape or form, but someone who is changing their views on an issue like that isn't going to change them overnight, which is, you know, a normal way people change their minds about things and change their behaviours and their thoughts and feelings, and not immediately. Like someone like, for example, Chloe, who's been a victim of abuse for 14 years, wouldn't change immediately overnight. But yeah, I will talk about it forever. I don't even like it that much. I just think it's unfair. Anyway, then we have the final end scene between Mark and Nathaniel. I was expecting, because everyone told me to wear rainbows, I was expecting Mark and Nathaniel to kiss. I was expecting a Jewel Rose moment, because I was like, if there is censorship, they can just immediately cut the episode, very easily cut the episode, just chop the end off, end it with the scene with Nathaniel and his parents and Mark. So I was expecting a kiss. So I did record a reaction, so I was like, we're gonna kiss again? I was expecting it. I am hoping for a Mark and Nathaniel kiss this season, since I now actually ship them, since Nathaniel has become infinitely less annoying this season. But oh my god, I really wasn't expecting them to do what they did. But first of all, again, the language is talking about like how the two characters, was it Sunheart and Rainpiercer? Something like that. They still managed to keep their powers and stuff, and they can defeat the deep darkness, which was homophobia, and okay, they've won this fight, but the overall battle against homophobia isn't over. It's likely they're gonna face it, sadly, more than once again in their lives. I love the language. It was great. I thought the language all the way through the episode was amazing, but then Nathaniel transformed. And then Mark did, although why did they? Part of me is like, I love that they just ended on Nathaniel's face, on his facial expression, when Mark transform, but I'm also like, why are you gatekeeping Mark's outfit? We've already seen it. It's in the opening and the ending credits. So I was just a bit like, are they trying to hide this from us? What's going on? Anyway, overall loved it. MVP of course was Nathaniel, but special mention for Mark because he was fabulous as well. Overall 9 out of 10. I thought the message around homophobia was absolutely wonderful. All the specific language they used, thought it was great. I can't wait to hear what the episode is going to be like when it gets released in the English dub, although I do believe it's actually been removed from the Disney Channel US schedule literally this morning, so I don't know what's wrong with that. Obviously they haven't finished doing the voice lines, I'd assume, since obviously it is fully animated. But I thought the whole message was great. I just felt it could have done with more of Nathaniel's mum and overall having a faster pace because I did feel like it dragged a bit. I don't mind it having a slower pace than other Miraculous episodes because it did have a really important message to send. But it was just a bit like, I felt the episode felt like about 40 minutes long. So I really feel like they struggle with that. Like for example, Derision, that sends a really important message about bullying and anxiety, even though I don't really like it. As in the episode, I have anxiety. Not that. I don't enjoy having that either. But anyway, again, that one felt like it dragged. So I think it's completely fine to have a slower pace for episodes that deal with more serious issues, but not so slow of a pace that it's like, it feels like a bit of a slog to get through. So yeah, but overall, really loved it. Thought it was great. Stunning, amazing. I can't wait till my son, Mark, gets his time to shine. Don't know what episode it'll be in though because we already had episode 3 sublimation. I don't know what's going to happen, but overall I thought it was great. I definitely feel like the writing is much better than other seasons overall, even though none of the episodes so far, in my opinion, feel free to disagree of course, have been completely perfect. I do think I'm giving out on average much higher scores across the episodes, whereas I feel like season 5 for sure was definitely like, some were great, like Pretension I thought was an excellent episode. I'm pretty sure that was a solid 10. Others weren't. They were quite a bit lower down than that, whereas I feel like consistently we're getting at least 7, 8s and 9s out of 10, in my opinion of course, for the season 6 episodes. The only ones I've been disappointed in at the minute were the Illustrator and Sublimation. Everything else so far I've really enjoyed. So I would think at the minute my favourite episode, I'm between Daddy Cop and El Toro de Piedra, but I feel like El Toro de Piedra, because it was just so different, is going to be the top one at the minute. That's my favourite at the minute, if you're wondering. So as always, besties, I'd love to know what you thought of this episode. If you're going to write me a long essay, I can't wait to read it, but please put some paragraphs in there just so it's easier for me to read. I don't care if it makes sense. I'm not your English teacher, you're not going to get a grade for it. It's just so it's easier for me to read because I have terrible eyesight. And also, that being said, because I forgot to say this at the end of my El Toro de Piedra commentary, if anyone was going to be homophobic, even if you've written me a long comment with other things in it, if there is any homophobia in it, I will just delete it. So yeah, absolutely not tolerated, not having it. Anyway, I'd love to know what you thought of this episode. I don't particularly feel like I have any like ongoing theories from this one. Like for example, El Toro de Piedra, there was lots of stuff I could make theory videos about. I don't really feel like that's the case with this one. To me it was kind of filler-ish, with the only plot progression being what happened right at the end. Which honestly in some respects it is really similar to the Illustrator and Sublimation, since they were kind of fillerish to me. But this one was actually good and those ones weren't really. But anyway, I'd love to know what you thought of this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!